Hello everyone, I'm B.Frank and I'm gonna be showing you how I made my Leave Me Alone remix slash bootleg. So yeah, hope you enjoy it, I hope you learned something and let's get into it. Alright, so I think I want to start with the intro of the track, just to start from the beginning. And it sounds kind of like this. Alright, so this intro is pretty simple. Honestly, the main element is this piano, which is a pretty simple piano if you think about it. Like, it's a bit processed, but it's not that much. So this piano, I decided to start this song with a piano because, as you can see, I'm a piano player and I enjoy writing music with my piano and also playing classical music, jazz music, basically any type of music that I can play in it. And yeah, I decided to add some of that to this remix and to my music in general. So it starts with a really simple progression, which basically repeats all the time. There's a little change at the end, but that's pretty much it. And the processing, the one that is most noticeable is this structure over here. This structure is a native plugin from FL Studio, inside of FL Studio, and it's a distortion plugin. I wouldn't call it creative distortion because it's more like trying to replicate what real pedals, like guitar pedals, do. So I have some filters and I also have some actual distortion, but the structure is really great. It's amazing. I really recommend it to anyone who has FL Studio because you can do some pretty cool and creative effects inside of it, but you can also use it to make like realistic sounds from, for examples, guitars, basses, or any type of thing that you need like a pedal or cabinet for. And you may have noticed that I also have this high layer, which is basically the same piano, it's the same thing, but it's going through some reverb and it's also an octave up. It's going through some reverb and some EQs just so it doesn't cover the whole frequency spectrum. And it really makes a difference because, for example, with it, I mean without it, and with it, it makes the whole track feel just brighter. I mean, as long as the intro goes. Then we have these vocal effects. That's just the same as the original vocal, but with some filtering and reverb. And I have this top loop, which opens more with time. And yeah, this piano, I also forgot to mention something which is pretty cool. It's my favorite thing about this piano is that at the end there's another structure and another EQ that is gaining a mix, like it's going from 0 to full wet. That's just to make the whole track feel like, hey, we're gonna move to a different section now, so it starts getting brighter, it starts compressing a little bit, and I just love how it opens up and then it closes to those notes and then it starts the verse, which is what we're gonna go to now. So the verse. Everybody gonna live a bitch, money make a go, instant. I can turn you on in an instant. Everybody now this verse, it may sound a little bit not complex, but like a little bit supercharged, like with a lot of elements going at the same time, but it's really not that much. It's pretty simple. So first, let's talk about the vocal. There's not that much going into it. The main thing is, I believe, this EQ. Just cleaning up some stuff. And then we have the perk that I mentioned before, which then later progresses into more perks. That's just to make the whole DNB flow start. I have a bass and a sub bass over here, just following a progression. Then I have this ARP over here, which is not heard until like the build up. And I love that ARP because I actually made that ARP with a native plugin from FL Studio called GMS. Now GMS is another plugin that I can't recommend enough. And also, trust me, FL Studio has some amazing native plugins. I don't know why some people complain about them because they're really great, honestly. If you learn how to use them, they're great. But the main thing that is making this sound like this is delay. Because if I play it without the delays, it sounds like this. Pretty simple ARP, just automating volume. But the main thing is this multiband delay, which is making all of the frequencies delay, literally. That's why it's called multiband, because it starts dividing the whole audio into different bands, kind of like a multiband compressor, like OTT, but it delays them in different ranges or different feedback amount. So it's really good. Another native FL Studio plugin. I just love how it sounds. I always use it for creative paths and everything. And talking about creative apps, I also had these ambience, these pads. Those are more noticeable. Those are just audios and samples. I really love adding pads. I didn't create these ones, but I have an obsession with making pads. So I'm probably gonna do a video talking about them in the future. Lastly, for this verse, I have the ARP. It's like a very Tron Legacy type of ARP. It's just opening with time, pretty simple stuff. And then it progresses into this little, pretty short build-up. So let me talk about this real quick. I'm just using a little snare loop. It's really simple, which if I play it by itself, it sounds horrible, honestly. But this is a really good example that sometimes less is more, or simplicity is the key sometimes. Because after all that we played during the verse, I felt like I didn't need to overcharge the build-up. I just needed to make some tension and then let the drop take all of that overcharge. So it's a pretty simple snare because I could have used, I don't know, a loop that I had made or a loop from a peg with a lot of perks, risers, and everything. But I just decided to keep it simple for this time. And I have the main vocal. It's getting another destructure. Going to full wet, which I'm going to talk about more in the drop. And I also have this little sound that is called melodic aura in here because I wasn't planning to, but I actually ended up using it as a lead. But I'm gonna be talking about that more in the drop. And lastly, this little symbol over here. A pretty simple symbol. That's like a Skrillex 2012 symbol, something like that, before the drop kicks in. So now let's go for the drop. Alright, so I want to start talking about the drums in this drop because they're pretty simple, but I feel like I should talk about them because I really enjoyed making these drums. So I have a kick and a snare and some loops on top of it. Pretty simple stuff. Then I added a cymbal loop. That's just to make the whole track progress, and I also added another drum loop for the beat part. That's an amazing tip that I can give you. It's just try to add texture to your drums. There's another method that I use, which I'm probably going to talk about in another video too. And it's really cool to add texture to your drums because it makes your whole track progress, and it makes your drums just sound different to what most people are doing because drums are sounds that have been existing for so many time in music, like I could say forever, or at least most of it. And learning how to make them in your own way, something that's pretty essential, at least to me, because I really enjoy messing with perks and with actual drum loops and everything. So yeah, always make sure to add some texture to your drums just to make your whole track feel bigger or more interesting. And now the vocal chops. These vocal chops, oh my god, they're so chaotic. and then over here. That sounds so bad. And that's just a structure. Yeah, you guessed it. I love using this structure. I believe it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. And I think this is a preset actually. I think it's the aggro preset, if I'm not mistaken, which is like the first preset, or I think it's the stereo fuzz. I'm not sure which preset this is, but it's a pretty cool preset that I just decided to add on top of the vocal just to make it a little bit more interesting for the drop. And now let's talk about the basses. Now this bass is of course more than one bass. It's always pretty useful to layer more than one bass if you're doing this type of bass genre tracks. So I have the first bass, which is GMS. Yeah. And all of these basses are GMS actually. This first one is the main preset of GMS, the first one that you have when you open up GMS, which I usually just added as like a temporary bass just to figure out what the rhythm for the drop was gonna be. But I ended up liking it so much that I just left it there. Like, there's honestly nothing bad in using presets if you learn how to use them correctly. Because for example, by itself, without any processing, this bass sounds like this. You can barely hear it because it has a lot of distortion. Then it goes through some destructure, EQing, and beat crushing. It starts getting some more power, and then it starts going through the whole bass, boss, this processing, which is just destroying the sound, but I honestly enjoy how it sounds. And then we have the choppy bass. It only appears like a couple of times in the drop, which is also, you guessed it, GMS. And then I have this, I don't know why I called it simple bass, it should be scream bass, but it sounds like this. And here's another tip that I could give about creating basses in this type of tracks, and it's that you don't need all the sounds to have like a full spectrum of bass or a full spectrum of high end. You just need to learn how to make them fit with each other. Because for example, this high bass over here, as you can see, it's not covering much of the bass frequencies, it's covering more of the high end. But the one who is covering the bass frequencies is this one. And if I add them together, so the reason why I added that second high-end bass is just to make this kind of harmonic addition to the track and to the drop, and it makes it like feel like the drop is screaming at you, which I only love. I honestly love that feeling in bass music. Then we have the sub bass. Pretty simple sub bass. I have this melodic element. I just called it like that. I didn't call it chord stack, which is also a bass from GMS, but I made it into a chord. I chopped it, I added some filtering, and I added a little bit of beat crush, which I love. Honestly, most of my tracks have at least, I don't know, 5 beat crushes in them. I mean, not in the master, in different sounds, but I love beat crushing. If you want to make a B.Frank style track, just add beat crusher to it. And I have this lead. I just love that lead. That's resampled from another track that I made some time ago, so I don't really remember how I made it, but I chopped it up and it's going through some automations. So as you can see here, it's going through some delay automation like here, and also some reverb here, just to like open it more and also to add more movement to the track, because I could have just made a normal rhythm, but by adding these little automations, it just make it all move a lot more. Have some small crashes, it's not that deep, and I have some glitches over here. Now, some of these sounds, like these glitches and the melodic elements, they're not really heard or like noticeable in the track, but I added them for texture, which is something that I really enjoy doing in my music. Just texture, it adds so much deepness into your tracks. Because for example, if I take them out, you may not notice at first, But it's not until I turn them back on that you kind of hear them or feel them in the track. So that's a really useful tip because not all sounds have to be on your face. Some of them can just be for texturing purposes. And yeah, that's kind of like Skybreak says. He says, felt not hurt. I really enjoy that concept because it's true. Not all sounds must be in your face. Some of them can just be for texture. Then the transition from the drop into the second verse. It's pretty simple. I'm just adding the same piano as the intro. I'm adding some vocal chops, and the drum loop is going through some reverbing and low pass filtering. So yeah, it's just like it's fading out. It's like the drop is saying goodbye to you. Now the second verse of the track. It's pretty simple. It's pretty much the same as the first one. The only different thing is this ARP. And that's pretty much it for that verse, because all the other elements are the same. And that's another tip that I can give, is to not be afraid to reuse elements as long as you reuse them correctly. Because by reusing these elements in this section of the track, I make the listener know like, hey, you're still listening to the same track and it has a connection. You know, like the whole track connects with it, and it's just like this whole world that I'm creating around a single song. The only different thing here for this second part of the song, if you could call it like that, is that I made an actual build-up, which sounds like this. Now, this section is more chaotic, as you can see, because for example, I have this vocal. It's just so chaotic. I think it's the same structure effect, but now it has some reverbing and some panning, as you can see over here. I also have the kick, which is decreasing in volume and increasing in filtering. I have an upriser. Pretty simple, just going through some sidechain. Bass and sub bass. Resample build up loop. And this is actually the same bass and sub bass, but I just added some huge reverb to it, and I'm doing some volume automation. So that's like a pretty simple self-made riser over there, which is really useful. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. And that's pretty much it, because then for the second drop, the only different thing is this little fake out. I tried to replicate the rhythm that Fred uses for his original track, and I just added some noise for those who are listening on their cell phone and they can't really hear the sub bass. So it's just a little simple noise effect over there. And that's pretty much it, because for the second part of this drop, which is the same as the first part, there's something I forgot to mention, and it's that the second part doesn't have the loud basses because it only has the sub bass, but I realized that only the sub bass would be too weak for the track, so I decided to add a second sub bass, and it just makes it sound like this. Because for example, first sub bass by itself, second one, as you can see, the second one has a little bit of different frequencies, and it also has some distortion, so it's just to add some extra texture to it. And then at the end of the track, the outro is just the same loop. And that's it. That's pretty much it for this breakdown. It's a pretty simple track if you think about it, but I really enjoyed making it. I enjoy making music all the time. And yeah, I hope you learned something. I hope this video was useful for you if you wanted to see how I made the track. And also, I have some special news because I have a free sample pack for this remix up in my Gumroad page, which you can see in the link below. It's gonna be the first link below there. And it has some sounds, as for example, the 808s, or the main drums, or even the lead. So I really recommend you checking it if you want to get all of these sounds. And yeah, it's 100% free, but you can also support me with any amount of payment that you decide. It's up to you, but you can get it for free. And thank you so much for watching my video. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all this stuff. And thank you. And I'll see you at the next one.